Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, I'm going to be talking about who do I think is the current face of the franchise for every CFL team. But really quickly before we get started, I actually have an announcement today, and that is that I have officially went live with 13th Man Sports on their website. There's going to be a tab at the top of their menu that says Hussey's Huddle. You click on that and you have a page that you can access all of my videos as well as my social media activity on Twitter and a little bit about my bio and whatnot. So it's nothing too extraordinary right yet, but it is another option for people that already watch 13th Man Sports to check out the channel through that sense as well. So I'd appreciate everybody for checking that out. I will leave a link down in the description, but again, just go to 13th Man Sports and click on Hussey's Huddle at the top menu to check it out. And I also have another announcement, and that is that I'm going to be attending Randy's road trip, Randy Ambrosi, the CFL Commissioner's Town Hall series tonight in Hamilton. Really excited. I got the invitation because I'm a season ticket holder and I asked for tickets a while back. So I'm very honored to be able to attend that event. So I'm very excited. I plan on doing a little bit of a video just discussing my thoughts and takeaways from what the commissioner had to say about the current state of the league. So really excited to go and attend that tonight. But with those announcements said, let's get on with the video. So first off, I just want to discuss what I mean when I talk about face of the franchise. And this can be a player, it can be a coach, it can be an owner, it can be anything involved with the organization. But who do I think of when I think of that brand currently? What do I think of when I think about that team currently? And again, it could be any member of the organization who has really made their mark and who's really, had the longevity, who has really, made their mark, and who I think of, again, when I think of that particular team. So with that said, let's go from West Coast to East Coast, starting with the BC Lions. And for them, I still think their franchise face is wide receiver Brian Burnham, who's been there for several years, 6 years, I believe, or 7 years with the team. He's been arguably the best receiver in the CFL over that time. And has just been, a constant member of that community, a face of that franchise for so long. Being the longest tenured guy, I really don't think anyone else is really in that conversation other than maybe TJ Lee, defensive back, but really hard for defensive players, especially defensive backs, to really become that franchise face just because they're just not as visible on the play a lot of the time. But, having that star receiver in Brian Burnham has been extremely valuable over the years, and that's really who I think of when I think of the BC Lions right now and the last couple of years. Now let's go to the Calgary Stampeders, which I think is one of the more obvious ones, and that is quarterback Bo Levi Mitchell. I think there's other ways you could go with this one. You could go with GM slash former head coach John Hufnagel, who's been kind of like that SAR overseer of this great organization the last several years here in Calgary. But I think Bo is still it, the outspoken personality, just the fact that, when you think of the Stampeders the last several years, you think of the controversy about Bo Levi Mitchell and how he is perceived by other fan bases and how he is, very loved by the Calgary Stampeders fan base and how well he has played over the years. And even though he had a down season last year, I think he still has the capability to bounce back. And I still think as of this moment, he is still very much the face of the Calgary Stampeders franchise. Now, the Edmonton Elks is a really tough one because they've had a lot of turnover on this roster. They don't have a lot of guys that have been there for a long time in prominent roles. So I'm actually going to go with GM slash head coach Chris Jones, who has been only here since this offseason when he got rehired as head coach. But again, he was head coach of this organization before. And the fact that he's head coach and GM means that his decision-making on this organization is going to mean so much. It's really going to shape the direction of this organization over the next couple of years, you would think, because, when you give a guy that much control, you assume he's probably going to be there for multiple years. You never know with Chris Jones, bolting jobs here or there, but, his decisions are really going to shape this franchise going forward, and that's why I consider him the current face of the Edmonton Elks. Now for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and I consider this one to be relatively easy, and I think that's quarterback Cody Fajardo. Regardless of your opinion of him, he's been very front and center the last couple of years since he became a starter. He's had his great moments, he has had his low moments, but the conversation always focuses around Fajardo, even though there are many other talented players on this team, and there's other guys that are been leaders on this organization. Craig Dickerson has done a great job at head coach the first couple of seasons of his head coaching career, and then Jeremy O'Day in the front office as well. But I consider Fajardo to really be the current face of the Rough Riders, at least for this season. Maybe he's facing a make-or-break season this year, but as of right now, I definitely consider him, and I think of Cody Fajardo when I think of the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Next, we have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and I think this is the toughest one, arguably, on the entire list, because there are a lot of candidates for this. You could say Mike O'Shea, you could say the GM, who I am forgetting the name of, Kyle Walters. You could say him as well. You could say several players like Zach Collaros or Adam Bighill. But you know who I'm actually going to go for is actually defensive end Willie Jefferson. I really associate this era of Winnipeg Blue Bombers dominance the last couple of years with defense. And I think of Willie Jefferson dominating the Grey Cup against Hamilton, the first one that they won, and really taking over that game in several games during that 2019 season. He did a lot of the same in 2021 as well, and I think that he's just this athletic freak that is really the face of everything they've been able to accomplish in Winnipeg. Yes, there's so many other components that have went into it, but I think Jefferson signing on before the 2019 season was really the catalyst for Winnipeg developing into this powerhouse we know today. Now switching gears to the East Division, and we're going to start with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and I think there's other options you can go here. You can go with owner Bob Young. You could go with quarterback Dane Evans, who is now officially the starting quarterback in Hamilton. But I'm going with linebacker Simone Lawrence, which I think is relatively obvious to me. He's been a very long-term member of this community. I even considered Simone Lawrence to face the franchise before Brandon Banks had left in free agency this year. Simone's just been the most, visible member in terms of being public during the offseason and everything like that. He's just been such a crucial part of the Hamilton community. Great player on the field, and Hamilton, like Winnipeg, has been a very defensive-led team. Even though they were great in 2019 offensively, I still think defense is really Hamilton's heart and soul. And, that blue-collar mentality, Simone Lawrence really embodies that, and I think that's why he's the face of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Next, we have the Toronto Argonauts, and I thought really long and hard about this one, but I still think it's Michael Pinball Clemens, the general manager, who is a former player, former coach. He really is Mr. Toronto Argonauts, and I've always thought of Michael Pinball Clemens when I thought of the Toronto Argonauts as a kid, and I still do today with how involved he is in terms of really putting together this team, just that insane free agency that they had in 2020, or before the 2021 season, I should say. His handprints are all over that from a recruiting aspect, and there's a lot of players on this roster that are talented, but not a lot of these guys have been here long term. As I said, a lot of turnover during the 2021 offseason, so I think Pinball is still the face of the Toronto Argonauts today, and like I said, I think he is Mr. Toronto Argonauts. Now for the Ottawa Redblacks, and I think this team is extremely hard to pick a face of the franchise for currently, because there's just been so much turnover this offseason in terms of, really revamping this roster. And, for that reason, because there's no other big candidates, I basically have to go with an acquisition they made this offseason, and that's quarterback Jeremiah Masoli. Say what you want about Masoli, but a lot of this free agency planning and everything like that really revolved around being able to land him first of all and then start recruiting other guys, because a lot of these players around the CFL would not have signed in Ottawa if they did not have that quarterback position solved. So for better or worse, I think Masoli is now the franchise face in Ottawa. We'll see how long it lasts that way, but I really don't think there's any other player or, member of the organization that really qualifies, in my opinion, for being the face of the franchise for the Ottawa Redblacks. So I think Masoli is currently the face of the Ottawa Redblacks going into the 2022 season. Now finally, we have the Montreal Alouettes, and I think this one's relatively easy as well, and I'm going with quarterback Vernon Adams. I don't think there's really any other place you really could go. You could go with Eugene Lewis potentially at wide receiver, but he's kind of had the same trajectory as Vernon Adams around the same time period. He's not a long-term established guy on this franchise, and I really don't think there's anybody on the defensive side that really rivals what Vernon Adams has done for this organization, because face it, before 2019, when Vernon Adams emerged as the starter and really had a breakout season, this team was just in the dumpsters ever since the retirement of Anthony Calvillo. For a handful of years, they didn't make the playoffs, and they really struggled as an organization. So Vernon Adams emerging in 2019, such a huge catalyst for what we think of this organization today. And even though he's being tested a little bit by bringing back Trevor Harris in free agency, I still think Vernon Adams is still the face of this franchise for the foreseeable future. He has the talent and all the tools in the world to be that franchise quarterback, and I consider him the current face of the Montreal Alouettes. But with that said, that is going to be the end of today's video, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Once again, my name is Jason. If you want to support the show, the best way to do it is by hitting the like button and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. I greatly appreciate it, everybody. And I know it's not the most in-depth video I did today because, it's not too much I could say to justify it in terms of, empirical evidence and whatnot. But I think that, it's an interesting discussion that you could argue a number of ways. Who do you envision in terms of who you think of when you think of that franchise currently in the CFL? And I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts in the comment section on it. And with that said, I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.